All right, so what we're going to remind ourselves of is some of our basic antiderivative rules. You've got a sheet, and you can use that sheet when you get to your test, just like our test so far. It's got the basic antiderivative rules on there, but I want to remind you of a few other things. So the first one is to recall your integration worksheet, or integrals, or antiderivative, whatever I titled it when I did it. I couldn't remember. I think I titled it antiderivatives. But so there's all these basic rules that you should know, right? You should know that the antiderivative of e to the x is e to the x. You should know that the antiderivative of cosine is, that one's actually a positive sign. Yeah. Make sure you go back and look at those before your quiz on Tuesday, right? Because you want to make sure you get the negatives in the right spot, that kind of stuff. But these are just some basic rules that help you to do some real straightforward, simple problems. Now, you won't see anything beyond that on Tuesday. However, on your homework, you are going to see some of these other issues coming up. 2, U substitution, right? You saw it on your test. You've been using it now since Calc 1, right? It's the only sort of upper level thinking beyond what you've done that you would have encountered in Calc 1. We added arc-trig functions in Chapter 5. So we have those rules as well. So those have things like square roots of 1 plus a squared, or just 1 plus a squared in the denominator, those kinds of things going on there. We have some basic simple algebraic simplification. For instance, if you have 1 plus x quantity squared, you need to actually FOIL that out and figure out that that's 1 plus 2x plus x squared before you can actually do an antiderivative there. You could see that on your quiz on Tuesday. That's pretty basic stuff. You should know that from college algebra, like 3 or 4 classes back, okay? So basic algebraic simplification. Completing the square, that is something we did brand new this semester, at least as it relates to calculus, right? Again, completing the square you first learned probably in a college algebra or algebra 2 high school kind of class. And you used it for other purposes there, but that's part of why you did it there, was because you would be continuing to use it in other portions of mathematics, and this is one of them. So we did completing the square, and you guys loved it, I remember. You also loved long division, didn't you? It was awesome. Now, I mentioned long division here specifically as it relates to improper fractions, right? Because you don't just use it any time. The only time that you see long division used is when the degree on the top and the bottom are the same, or if the degree on top is larger than the degree on bottom. Okay, those are called improper fractions. That's something you've done back in middle school, called them improper fractions. And then we also have trig identities, which is why I handed out that trig identity sheet to you. Because it's often helpful, and you saw one of them on your test, 1 plus tangent squared, to know that 1 plus tangent squared is secant squared, right? Because that actually made the problem a lot easier to work with. Or if you were multiplying, for instance, if you had tangent times cosine, let's say we had tangent, if you're trying to do the integral of tangent times cosine. Well, if you change them all into sines and cosines, you find out very quickly that tangent times cosine is just sine, and you can work with that, right? Whereas if you actually have tangent times cosine, it's more challenging to work with. So trig identities are really helpful. Now, I gave you a whole bunch of them, right? I mean, this is actually from my trig class that I'm teaching this semester. Really, the first probably 3 are the only ones you really see used much in calculus. Okay, they're the easy ones. They're the ones you did very first when some of you guys were with me in trig. Quotient identities, you need to know that tangent sine over cosine, right? You guys know that. Reciprocal identities, that cotangent is the same as 1 over tangent, that kind of stuff. And you should know this with Pythagorean identities. And aside from those 3, we won't be using very much of any of the other ones for now. There's one other place within Chapter 8 where we're going to go back to trig. There may even be 2 sections worth of it. But we'll encounter that and we'll deal with that in a little different way at that point. Okay, so for right now, those first 3 really will take care of most of what your needs would be. Yes?
Will we get the sheet on the next test?
Yes, you can have it on your next test. That's fine. So, okay. Everybody good? All right.